listening to the Pasco Podcast with Mike Carballa. Welcome to Season 3 of Pasco Podcast, a series about leadership and public service. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the nearly 600,000 people of Pasco County, as represented by the Board of County Commissioners. It's through their trust and empowerment of our workforce and leadership team that we're able to bring you this podcast. This podcast is designed to help public servants build leadership skills and leverage them for success by sharing the experiences of our peers.
Hi there, I'm Mike Carballa, and welcome to our 41st episode of Pasco Podcast. The month of June is special for so many reasons. Not only is it the official start of summer, but it's also National Automotive Professionals Month, and we are pleased to recognize the team that literally keeps our county running smoothly every single day. So we'll be diving into the essential role of our fleet services and exploring how these unsung heroes keep us moving forward to help you. Today, we welcome our two special guests from the fleet management team, Director Brent Wahl and Assistant Director Chantell Sicard.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. I'd like to just take a second here just to learn a little bit about how each of you came to Pasco County. Talk to us a little bit about your time here at Pasco, Brent.
Well, I've been at Pasco now for coming up on the close of the 8th year. Obviously, do the math. That means I got here in the latter part of 2016.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest, it's been a blur. You look back and it's like, wow, it's been 8 years, 8 wonderful years. But yeah, it's been 8 years. And I guess...
Now, you didn't come in as director at the time,
I did.
Right? Oh, you did come in as the director.
I came in here as the fleet director, kind of looking for my last job.
Okay,
is what the approach was I had on the interview. So, and it worked out. I was kind of a match of what the ACA was looking for at the time, and this was kind of where I wanted to be. I'd been bouncing between California and Florida for the most part the last 30 years.
That's
off
extreme.
And on. Yeah, it's we just had a conversation with the team here about that. It's about as those two places are about as different as you can possibly
Always
be.
In the fleet business, Brent?
Pretty much exclusively in the fleet business, briefly a couple exceptions here or there. Did some high volume purchasing work for a couple years in one of them, and actually snuck in a year of high school chemistry teaching for a year as well.
No kidding. All right. Save the Breaking Bad references here. So
yes.
Hey, so Chantell, let's talk about you. Your career has been varied here. You've been with the county for a while, various roles. Talk to us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing for the county now.
So I started in Pasco County actually with the clerk's office.
Okay.
So I worked at the clerk's office for 2 years back in 2014. I started as the lead there for the accounts payable department, moved up into the supervisor role. Being over there helped me build relationships over here on the BOCC side because we were just transferring over to a new financial software.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So we did a lot of trainings together and everything, which helped me meet a lot of people over on this side. And then you guys had the budget manager at the time got promoted. And so I applied for that position and I was hired into the county as the budget manager. And so I did that for 2 years. Then I was the program administrator for internal services for 5. And then I just had this opportunity that Brent gave me to come downstairs and work with him over in fleet as the assistant director.
Fantastic. So your career is varied, but I think having varied perspective probably helps significantly when it comes to managing the fleet operation. So Brent, talk to me a little bit about the overall how fleet supports the operations. I mean, it's National Automotive Professionals Month. We just passed a resolution on that with the board. I think it was fantastic. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about how fleet supports the county's operations? Because
Sure.
There's a lot going on there.
There's generally 3 main lines of business that we have in the fleet department.
Okay.
The one everybody thinks of course, is the mechanics who are out there maintaining the fleet every day, and those are the ones that most of the people see on a regular basis. Those that are driving or or are mobile.
Right.
There's a couple other lines of business that don't get as much notice, and that's good.
Okay.
Because generally speaking, the less notice we get, the better things are going to be running, and that's a good indication of good things happening. But fuel and the fuel supply is another one of our main lines of business. And what's a surprise to a lot of people, and that falls under the group that Chantell is in charge of, but our whole fueling operation with 8 major sites, a few smaller ones, and we do about 2 million gallons of fuel a year. But that's basically run by one person here in our department.
So and on that fuel side, right? So that's making sure that those sites are supplied adequately, and not to mention you guys have mobile fueling responsibilities too, right?
Correct,
so
yeah.
Equipment that's out there in the field that really can't go drive that front end loader necessarily through the gas station. So you got to go take care of that
So
stuff.
right now our fueling team is working on going through all the county generators, seeing how we're approaching hurricane season and making sure that all those generators are topped off and in working order.
Fantastic. So fuel, mechanics, did you say there were 3?
There's 3. The third part, of course, is the replacement program and management of the replacement program itself. The motor pool vehicles are kind of a smaller part tucked into there, so maybe there's a fourth line of business. But the acquisition team that also falls under Chantell, it is a critical part of what the county does to make sure we have the right vehicles for that the folks need and the right configurations. And
now that was something, and again, being familiar and going through the budgeting process right now, the vehicle replacement program I think it's fantastic. I mean, essentially, departments, kind of leasing vehicles from you, if you will, internally, and get new vehicles about every 8 years. So I mean, it keeps your fleet fresh. I imagine that saves on maintenance costs, allows you to keep up with technology, fuel efficiency, and all kinds of other stuff. Versus having a 25-year-old Ford Focus in the fleet that you hope is going to get you, to Orlando if you had to get there, right? I mean, that was kind of the genesis behind a lot of that, was trying just to keep the fleet reliable. Would you say it's been successful?
I would say very much so. One of the reasons I took this job was because it did. Not only was it an internal services fund, the fleet department is the only department in the county that is 100% an internal services fund.
And for those listening, what we're really talking about here is, Brent's kind of got his own separate fleet fund that is segregated from the rest of it, and departments essentially pay into it. And it's allowed us to really focus on our fleet costs versus having to sit here as we go through budget time and decide whether or not, we're going to change oil or, keep the lights on. So we've decided we can do both, but, we kind of shelter those dollars that way. And it's really amazing.
Yes, that's as I was saying, that was one of the primary reasons why, or that drew me to this position, was it is an internal services fund. It was properly funded, and the administration and elected official approach to the management of it was one that I thought was correct. Where some of my peers, will get rated on an annual basis, depending on their fund balance and things like that, which is not what it's supposed to happen.
That's correct. Yeah.
The management of that fund has been critical for the improvements that we've made, or that I like to think we've made here over the last 8 years.
And I mentioned before that we just passed a resolution, and I was just, where I was going to go back. It was to that slide you presented to the Board of County Commissioners, which I think drew a lot of attention. I mean, some of the commissioners were very much, wow, we need to go see your operations, and how you've managed to really be efficient in terms of costs. And part of that is you've got the fleet fund, you've got the vehicle replacement program, you've got all these things that are working. But sometimes it's just nice to be recognized, right? Yeah. Can you tell me what that recognition means for the team, Chantell?
It was really gratifying to be recognized by your peers and, as well as the public that you serve, and just being able to highlight the importance of our department and how we play a role within the organization. Yeah. We're pretty much behind the scenes most of the time, so I don't think people really realize, we work with and collaborate with the departments as far as specification goes for vehicles and equipment. we maintain those vehicles and equipment, the buses that go around and pick up the public. I mean, even just the vehicles that deliver meals to the seniors, which, something that's very important here in the county. That was something else that got recognized during that same board meeting.
Absolutely.
And those vehicles are maintained and purchased, through our department. So it was really nice to be able to have that recognition.
Fantastic. Brent, anything to add? Or?
It was nice. It's always nice to get up and do that. Although, in case you didn't notice during the resolution, the group that we have, we are, as Eric Araka says, the team behind the team, and that is very much where my team generally likes to be. You probably noticed when it came up time to go up to the podium, I almost had to go to the back
nudging
and push them forward to get up there, but it's still. It was still nice to do and very much appreciated.
It's awesome, and it's great to see that. And like I said, the board really, open their eyes, and I mean, they love our team. I mean, that's across the board, and so I think to see the fleet team, and the team behind the team, I think was great. So, can you describe a typical day in the world of fleet? Well,
one of the benefits about being in fleet management or that arena, it's very, very data driven. You'll come into the office in the morning and fire up the computer, and we have one of the best information systems out there for running a department that you can have. I think we've upgraded it in the last couple of years, and we're still in the process of learning all of those. But up pops my screen, and up pops the dashboard of where the stuff is for the day, and I can generally figure out if I've got questions or issues coming, within a 5-minute glance from there. And then depending on what we pick up off the dashboard, we'll walk around a little bit and see what's going out out in the parking lots and on a couple of the islands or the shop floor, and say hello to some folks and sometimes it's this meeting, sometimes it's that meeting.
Some days it's a podcast.
Some days it's a podcast, and some days you're working on that next chart or trying to figure out, the format for that chart you were talking about. It took about 3 years to figure out what exactly we were trying to show in our various cost charts. It was like, oh, this is it. So got to spend some time thinking on the messaging and how to deliver the messages.
And that'll.
I'm sorry. I probably spend more time on that than you would think.
That's fantastic. Chantell, how about you?
I spend most of my time meeting with my team. Since I'm still fairly new there, I like to sit with them, learn what they're doing, see what they're doing. I've had the opportunity to fill in for a couple of them while they've been on vacation.
Okay.
So that's what I was doing with our
Chantell's out driving the fuel truck. That's what I hear. All right.
Well,
awesome.
As a matter of fact, that's the person that was out was our fuel coordinator.
Okay.
And so while she was out, we all kind of picked up stuff, but I was kind of doing the fuel monitoring and stuff and getting a feel for what it is that she does every day. So I was meeting with her yesterday, and I was asking her, okay, well, be honest, did I screw up your job too bad while you were out? like where did I fall off?
It's recoverable, Chantell. Don't worry. We'll fix it.
So I spend a lot of time doing that. But aside from that, a lot of it is reviewing contracts, monitoring the budget, making sure that we have sufficient monies in place for the things that we need to be able to acquire, services that we need to be able to pay for, approving requisitions and things.
Gotcha. Like that. Brent, what are some of the big challenges that you face when managing the county's fleet, and how do you overcome them?
The challenges will kind of have a cyclical approach. There'll be some that are coming up that are going to be big, and then the industry will clear those. One of the bigger ones coming up is the new emissions regulations for heavy trucks that are due to come in. I believe 26 is the first year they're supposed to be here.
Okay.
The problem is none of the manufacturers have produced the engine yet that meets those. And they say they're getting close, but costs are projected to be another 20 to 25% at least higher than what they are now. And although the fleet department, I'm really proud of what we've been able to do in terms of that maintenance cost of what we're able to maintain the fleet for.
Right.
The other part that line of business, the replacement program, we are literally, for the most part, just at the mercy of what the market is. And as everybody knows, the cost on replacements and new vehicles is...
Things skyrocketed. And then I know post-COVID, you were dealing with delivery delays. I know you guys did a lot of innovative things to where we were able to get the board to delegate some authority for purchases to allow us to be a little more nimble when you get that phone call, right? I mean, so...
We did. We had the acquisitions team had one of our vendors kind of drop the ball in one of the COVID years and did not get about 120 vehicles ordered.
Oof.
We have a window.
Yeah, and you have a window for ordering and when the build out dates are. So once it was missed, it was gone. But the team was able to actually recover all of those through a couple different methods like you talked about. We asked the board for a little increase in the spending authority of what would take to get to a board item. And because it was also, with COVID came a lot of budget disruptions. And what the team was able to do, we ran through and we were making contact daily with the various vendors, and we were picking up canceled orders from folks. And we told, once we were doing that and successful initially, the vendors learned that,
well, let me call Pasco first, right?
We should be the first call. Yeah. And the team was able to actually make up that entire order loss and others on top of it for other additionals.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Our acquisitions team, from what I've been able to go through and discuss with my peers, right now our processes of acquiring vehicles are faster and more efficient than pretty much everybody's I've talked to. It's actually the best of a vehicle purchasing environment that I've ever had in terms of processes and tools. And I know that because Pasco is growing so fast, sometimes we can't quite keep up, with that growth. Hey, we need the vehicles now. And we don't always have that. And I know there's some folks out there that still feel some of that pain, but it actually could have been a lot worse for what a lot of other agencies have.
It's fantastic how you kind of take those challenges and you've just turned them into outright successes. So I think that's good. I want to pull back on something. You were talking a little bit about, emissions regulations and things like that. So it makes me wonder, how do you ensure that our fleet is environmentally friendly and sustainable? And would you mind touching on the importance of preventive maintenance in terms of how that affects the taxpayers?
Okay, let's take the second part of that one first.
I figured you would.
Yeah, and that'll be a little shorter one. The preventative maintenance programs out there are designed to prevent major breakdowns.
Right.
And depending on what they are, what type of vehicle you're talking about, you'll do different things. For larger, heavier vehicles, construction equipment, at times you'll even do the preventive maintenance checks will include oil analysis. Okay, we've got copper in the engine. Okay, if copper's in the engine, that means this component is starting to break down, and those types of things.
Fancy.
So,
wow.
Then it goes all the way back to the simple, double check of the Ford Explorer, and it's like, okay, the brakes are he's got enough brakes to last another 6 to 12 months, depending on whatever his service interval is and how many miles he's driving. The belts are in good condition, and those types of things. We're looking for other things systemically that we know are going to fail on a certain type of vehicle at 150,000 miles or so. That's beyond that check. So then we know these ones coming in, we need to start checking all those and preventing those so we don't have the major breakdowns. So that's actually the goal of a PM program. Is we want to see it regularly for small things rather than waiting till we have a big
It's
one.
like anything. Let's catch problems while they're small before they become big, just like going to the doctor. Well, on the environmental front, let's talk about that.
Well, that's a really loaded question.
It is, isn't
Mike.
it?
Yes, because we.
You're welcome.
The big thing is out there. Okay, electric vehicles. Okay, electric vehicles.
It comes up all the time, doesn't it? I think I even asked that question first getting into
the
seat.
we get it a lot.
So.
Electric vehicles, those are more environmentally friendly. And the reality is, at this point, the industry is not really certain that that's totally true, because you have to look at the total carbon footprint or life cycle of the vehicle, not just operating. Now, I will say, coming from Southern California, their electric vehicles and a lot of the other emissions things that have come up have made an improvement. There they suffer from a point pollution. Point source pollution problem.
Yeah, and by that you mean just the car itself.
The car itself, what it's spitting out of its tailpipe.
Right.
And, I used, when I was, my first tour in California, when I lived in a different place and I drove to work, and in the summertime, the San Gabriel Mountains were like 6 miles away from you. And then they'd go straight up. But in the summertime, you couldn't see them because of the haze.
Yeah.
And then when I went back the second time, it was 10 years later, I was doing the same drive. And then, you could see them much, much later in the year. And it was only like a month or so where you couldn't. You could visibly see the improvement in air quality. But that, that electric vehicle generally takes probably twice, the estimates are about twice as much pollution is created producing an electric vehicle than a standard vehicle.
I gotcha.
And we still don't know the full impacts on the disposal once you're done with it.
Batteries, right?
Yes. So, unfortunately, like many things, you take science and politics, and you get politics. There's still some things we need to work through before we can figure out what the best approach is. I will say electric vehicles are probably still a very good option for high-density transit agencies, that are 100% city-operated, like the majors, Miami, maybe not Tallahassee, but Jacksonville and major cities similar to that. But other than that, the electric vehicle application is still a little bit in the air as far from my perspective.
I think it's like any technology, right? I mean, we probably could go back, 120 years ago and have this same conversation, but replace electric vehicle with internal combustion engine and, internal combustion engine with horse and buggy. So,
there's also a large capital cost that would come along with that, because you're going to need charging stations.
Your infrastructure is going to change.
Yeah, you have to invest in the garage to make sure that they have the necessary diagnostic
and we really, I don't know if we've gotten past, how do we handle a contingency type environment if you were to be hit with an EN or something like that? How do you continue to have those essential, if your power grid's down, then you've essentially lost your fuel network.
That is also a significant problem. And again, like we saw in some of the other instances in some of the other cities last year in the storms, et cetera.
Yeah, it gets too cold. Your car won't start.
Yeah, there are all kinds. There's just still a lot of bugs to be worked out, and we're just actually finally getting to the point. I don't think people would be surprised by this if they stop and think about it. But the actual primary vehicle in Pasco County is the half-ton pickup. We are
heavy equipment.
If you'll excuse the phrase, a working man's vehicle fleet.
Well, we're 93% unincorporated, and we got a lot of ground to cover out here, and there's a lot of work to be done, and the services that we provide are typically those types of services.
And that model or that type of vehicle just recently became available in an electric edition. Prior to that, most of the electric vehicles were like, it looks like a tin can going down the road. Okay, we're in an electric vehicle, but does it solve the problems? Can the media relations team get all their camera equipment in that, or do they need the van? Sorry, we still need the van.
Their cameras are all on their phones. Yeah. I don't know what they're doing. No. Yeah. So, Chantell, let's talk a little bit about leadership. So you were recently, coming to this role as assistant director. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's been a great experience. So before I took on the role permanently, Brent gave me the opportunity to kind of just try it out.
That's right.
And so I came downstairs and I liked it a lot. I've enjoyed learning the personalities of the different team members downstairs, being able just to bring a different dynamic to the team. I have more of a strong financial background, so I've enjoyed the opportunity to learn about the shop and different kind of businesses. One of the things I was most surprised about when I came downstairs was how specifications worked, right? Because normally when I buy a car on my end, there's like 3 different versions. You got the S, SE, X, SE, and you're like, all right, those are the
all right. What trim model am I picking out
correct.
here? Yeah.
But once you get into things like purchasing special equipment and fire trucks, it's not like that at all. You have to know, like, you can't change one thing without it impacting everything else in there. So there's a lot more to it than just what you think. And I found that very interesting, and I enjoyed it, very much. So right now it's been great being able to be downstairs and lead such a wonderful team, and they accepted me. I think leadership needs to happen organically, and that was more what I was looking for, to see if I was going to actually be a good fit for that team.
Did you worry about coming in, okay, here's Chantell, I'm, was program administrator, financial background. Here I am, I'm, the number 2 here running a fleet department. Did you worry about having some credibility with the team?
Absolutely
How'd you
did.
overcome a lot of that?
I absolutely did. And to my surprise, nobody was worried about it. When I actually told them that those were my concerns as a leader for them, they actually talked me out of it. And they're like, oh, you can learn this stuff. They're like, I think you'll be great. We'll teach you. We'll show you. They were all so very welcoming. I mean, being the program administrator for internal services, I'd had the opportunity to work with the group as far as doing SWATs and things like that with them. So it's not like I was totally new to the team. So they were familiar with me and just with how I was. But yes, that was absolutely a concern. I didn't want anybody to feel like, I got to follow this moron that doesn't know half of what I know. And so that was definitely a big concern of mine.
Well, then clearly you demonstrated that your skill set, and Brent obviously recognized this too, was complementary to the operation. So I think that's always a plus.
Well, I would add that Chantell carries a lot of credibility with her when she came in. She was not, as a program administrator for the branch, she was not brand new to the team. And it just goes with that old adage, do well wherever you're at, because you never know where you're going to be next.
Amen, brother.
And
Amen.
that credibility she had built up with the team, even though she was not a full-time member of the team, doing SWATs and other things, that the professionalism that she had there just carried. That was already the impression.
Fantastic.
So, problem solved.
Brent, who's been the biggest influence on you as a leader?
Well, that's interesting. I have a former boss that I kind of looked at the questions ahead of time, and there were 3 folks that jumped out at me.
You spoiled it now, Brent.
Yeah,
come on
now. I know. And I'll talk about one because it's a little bit different than you might have from one of them, or than what a lot of people would say, this person inspired me and all this. One of the example I chose was a former boss in the fleet industry.
Okay.
And the reason I picked that one is, for everything that I learned what to do or how to, for every one of those, I think there was almost one of those that was what not to do.
Okay.
And I think that was the big lesson for me. It's kind of like, as a teenager, you'll soon learn your parents are not infallible, and you go through that.
Right.
And you start, as you get older, you just develop that with your bosses too. No matter who your boss is, you learn that, okay, this is his weak spot, or this is this, and he's doing this well or this not. And I think that was I was about in my mid-career range where that occurred, where I could actually learn as much from what was not going well as I did from what was going well.
Yeah. We learn a lot from those. Chantell, how about you? Any leaders that had an impact on you?
To be quite honest, I think as far as leadership goes, I think it's my family.
Okay.
My mom, from when I was very young, always encouraged me to speak up and speak my mind. And my grandmother taught me to always be respectful.
You were a sassy kid, weren't you?
I was. But my grandmother always my grandmother always curbed it to make me be respectful and kind. My husband encourages me all the time and tells me that, you need to have confidence. You could do this. He was even talking me up yesterday because he knew I was super nervous about having to do this. So he was talking me up about it. And I think my kids really test the whole explain the why thing, right?
Okay.
Children don't follow you blindly.
Right. They have a sixth sense about that kind of stuff, don't they?
Even when their whole entire lives are in your hand,
Yes.
They still question, why do I have to do this? And why do I have to do that? So it gives you really good experience at explaining the why. Because if kids aren't going to follow you without knowing the why, educated adults are not going to follow you without explaining the why. So it's really good practice for leadership.
Oh, fantastic. I like that. I don't think I've heard that answer before. I like your perspective on it. Any leadership lessons or wisdom that either of you would like to share? Successes, failures, challenges?
I think as far as leadership goes, it really does, like I said earlier, it has to happen organically. If people are truly going to follow you, they have to, trust you and believe that you actually trust them to do what it is that they're there to do. And I think it's a little bit difficult when you're switching from an operational role to a leadership role, because when you're in an operational role, you're part of a team,
right,
and you're looking to stand out and be the star player. But once you get in a leadership role, you can't be the star player anymore. You're now you're coaching the
right,
team. You're looking to develop new stars. You're looking to bring a team together. And I think, that's something that people need to be mindful of when they go into a leadership role. Nobody wants to report to someone that's going to, steal their credit or not give them the opportunity or the autonomy for them to make their choices and own, their jobs.
Well said. Well said. Brent, anything you want to add on to that? It's a tough act to follow there.
Well, that's what I was just about ready to say ditto, but I think that would fly. So I'll throw out one piece of advice, one that I kind of learned the hard way for folks. When you find yourself in tough spots, whether it's budget or everything else, and you for whatever reason you just you don't have the assets or currently whatever, it's not looking like you can make big improvements, or and so you're going to say, okay, team, we just need to hold and accomplish what we did last year. I would caution folks that you always need to push for some improvement, no matter what. If you're setting goals properly and doing all those things, you never accomplish all of them.
Right.
So if you set your goal on doing what you did last time, in some of those areas you're going to fall short. So you will actually end up regressing. And as I said, I kind of learned that the hard way once. And I would just throw that out there as a little tip.
Well said, sir. Well said. Any advice, to someone thinking about a career in fleet? I know we're hiring. It's it's tough out there.
If you're interested in it, it's one of the areas you can actually get to a level to include supervisory without a degree. But if you're willing to go also get that degree in the process of while you're doing it, you really open up an untapped market for folks, because there's a lot of folks that can supervise or other people and learn to be good, good supervisors who are good technicians. But
right,
to go up much farther, you need that degree and some type of business training that goes with it. So
yeah, well, you guys are running you're running a small business. I mean, essentially here within the county. So you got to have those skills too, to do that. And higher education can help build those for sure. Chantell, how about you? Anything?
Yeah, just there's more to fleet than just being a technician or
right,
a mechanic. There's different positions. There's different stuff in there. So if you're interested in the automotive industry, there's really a lot of different things that you can do within it. So
I grew up working on cars. That was my first car. Showed up on a tow truck at 15, and for my birthday got a toolbox and a how-to manual, and took better part of 6 months to get that thing running. But it's fun, and a lot of people have a genuine interest in it. But cars and vehicles are becoming more and more increasingly complex as well. So
I think this is probably the one industry that people actually do it all day as a job, and then they go home and they have, a hobby and they continue to do it, because I always hear, a lot of the guys in the back and stuff, when they talk, they go home and they literally work on cars, and they have garages in their house. I'm like, oh, I'm an accountant by background. I don't go home and play with Excel spreadsheets.
I don't go home and mess with spreadsheets, that's for sure. Brent might, but I know you don't. So. All right. Well, now for the questions that you didn't get in advance, Brent. Can't believe you just outed us like that. But just real quick, this is an either or. Salty or sweet, Brent?
Sweet.
Sweet. Chantell?
Sweet.
Sweet. All right, a couple sweet tooths here. All right, movie or book?
Movie.
Oh, it's tough, right?
It's tough.
Depends.
I would
go with your gut.
I would go with nowadays with book.
Book. All right. Fantastic. I'm with you there. Print, I even got rid of the Kindle. I'm back to old,
analog. Well, I got my eyes fixed here recently, so I can handle books again. So
Yeah.
I go with the book.
That's fantastic. First job, Brent.
First job, McDonald's.
McDonald's. Were you on the patty line, or
I
were you-
was.
No kidding. Look at that. How about you, Chantell?
Shoe store. I was in Al Bundy.
Shoe store. All right. Did you get discounts?
Sure did.
Yes. All right. Perfect. Plenty of fashionable shoes there. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Morning.
Amen, brother. Yeah, I'm with you there. If I'm up past 9:30,
Not even close.
It's
Yeah.
too late. I can't even. Ford or Chevy?
Ford.
Ford.
Nice. Tropics or mountains?
Tropics.
I knew that.
I'll go with the tropics too.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, last one. What's your go-to snack?
Chocolate.
How about you?
Pizza.
Pizza. God, ooh, man. I skip breakfast too. Oh, you guys are making me hungry. Hey, listen, Brent, Chantell, thank you today for being here. It was great having you both. And a special thanks to our media relations team who make this effort possible. And thank you for joining us on this episode of Pasco Podcast. I'm Mike Carballa, and we'll see you next time.
For more information on Pasco County government, please visit mypasco.net.